My name's Hugh Smith. I've had that name a long time, and we're here this afternoon at the Free Library in Waterloo, Alabama. That's Lauderdale County, about as far as you can go without getting into the water and getting wet. Okay, we have a room full of people in this library. It's packed full of folks. You can't see most of them because the camera probably won't be panning around too much, but it's jammed with people. Okay, and the people out here you may hear, but maybe they don't want to be seen. A friend of mine left here is David Ponder. He's from Killeen area. Okay, he was for a long time researching and finding these old cemeteries. And David's a friend at church as well. And Patty Majors is here from the Waterloo area, the Free Library Administrator. I don't know, sounded good. Okay, I'm not sure where she's from, Savannah, Tennessee, Hardin County area for a long time. And our video guy, B.C. Clemens, he's from parts unknown. Okay, somewhere in Alabama, I suppose. Okay, but yeah, I was born in Alabama, north of Cloverdale. Now, I'm sure most of you, especially our audience, they've heard of Cypress Inn, Tennessee. Well, if you go north on Cloverdale Road far enough, you'll come to County Road 10. And you turn right, you go up to the top of the hill, and you go left on County Road 257. When I was born up there, my brother and I, older brother and I, on Mom and Dad's farm. Okay, now that's 1 mile south of Cypress Inn in Alabama. Now keep that in mind. So that's where I came from, okay, long ago. So we're here today. We're going to talk a little bit about cemeteries in the Waterloo area, which there's about 31 or 2, okay, that we're going to mention today. So, and a couple other things before we get started. I want to recognize some people in this area. They helped us locate the cemeteries in Waterloo and visit them, okay? Because when I lived on the farm, I can remember probably in the mid-50s, we came to Waterloo one time only, and that was a fishing trip for Mother and Dad. We didn't want to be there, okay, but we were. So I knew when we started down in the western part of the county, I didn't know anything about it, okay? So somehow, I think through Doris Holcomb Wood, met Jimmy. She said, my husband knows where some cemeteries are. Well, that's what I wanted to hear. So we met Jimmy, then his brother Steve. Then later on, Mike Norman joined us, and Kenneth Murphy, who's from Waterloo. He now lives in Oakland area. And of course, David Ponder, the gentleman here in the audience, I don't know if you can see him or not. He may want to stand up and say something, I don't know. When he starts talking, he likes to talk and go on for long periods of time, okay, unlike myself. And our old friend from Cloverdale, he still lives downtown Cloverdale, Steve Cooper. You may know Steve. And Steve says he and I are cousins, and we're still working on that proof, okay? And Steve goes to the Florence Library Tuesday mornings, 11 a.m. He stops at Jack's, gets a biscuit, goes to the cell barn, he comes back and goes to the library. And if I'm not too busy, I join he and some others at the library at 11 a.m. But before that, I meet for breakfast with some old ham radio guys. I did say old, okay. Then I go to the library, okay. Also, there was another old school buddy from Cloverdale. He was my neighbor at Cloverdale when we lived on the farm, because there was only 2 houses on that road. There was 5 boys and 2 girls, 2 sisters. Well, I preferred to go up to their house and visit and play, because his sisters were much better looking than the boys were, okay? And I don't know why that is, but they were. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit of about where I came from. Also, I want to recognize some people that you may have heard of that used to conduct these surveys. And one was from the western part of the county, Orland Irons. You guys may have heard of Orland. He passed away, I think, like maybe 10 years ago. And I believe Orland was a military guy. He did surveys in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, and maybe part of the 90s. He was very accurate, and I have access to a lot of his material to go by and review the surveys that he did. He almost never made an error. The only thing I really ever found in his writings was he might say, turn left here, turn right. Now, that's kind of could be a typo in the transcriptions. So back then, when he was doing it, they didn't have computers, it was typewriters. He wrote them out and then someone typed them for them, okay? So it was himself And he did cemetery surveys from some in Florence area all the way to Waterloo. And I don't think he ever went to the state line going northward. Another gentleman was a cousin of mine, David Montgomery. He's from Cloverdale. David did it until for about 15 years. Very good at his work. He did surveys from, he came about to Florence, but he went all the way to the county line, all of Wayne County. He did a few over in Hardin County, and then he did a few in Perry County. Okay, but David never went eastward toward Rogersville or the county lines there at Elk River. And another person, Mr. William Q. Hill, he was from, I believe, the Green Hill area. Now, he did the surveys back in the 50s. He goes way back. And he's passed away about a dozen years ago. But his information was very accurate as well, okay? And I have access to some of his old information. Okay? Then there was another gentleman, Robert Torbert. Robert, I believe he's still living. I talked to him about 3 years ago. He did a lot of surveys and did a very good job, okay? And he's in assisted living. He's probably mid-80s now. When I talked to him, he said, I'd love to keep doing it, but I can't, okay? So I'm almost at that point I can't, but we're going to go as long as we can. We enjoy it. Now, you're probably wondering, we get asked this, why do you enter surveys in cemeteries, you know? Well, what I tell them is this. They're all important to us and me, and I think David as well, because the person that's buried there, that was a real person. It was somebody's family member, brother, sister, mother, dad, or somebody. And we're going to be there soon one day, maybe sooner than we realize. So we're going to be in the ground with them. And that's why it's intriguing to me, and you can learn a lot by visiting these old cemeteries. Now, why and how did I get involved with cemetery surveys? Anybody want to know? 10 hands go up. Okay. From my family genealogy. Before I retired, I don't like to say retired, I just stopped work and came home it'd be 6 years ago, almost 6 years. I was based in Houston for a lot of years, okay? And one weekend I was sitting there watching TV, and I was thinking about my parents who passed away long ago. Dad was from Lauderdale County, Cloverdale. Mother was from Wayne County, Waynesboro. Mother wrote a lot in her years, and I didn't understand why. And when I was young, I didn't care. I had no interest in that stuff, okay? But she kept her records. Then I realized I didn't know much about my dad. He was a quiet person, didn't say much, okay? But he was a good person and took care of his family, worked hard. So I got to thinking, I need to learn some more about Dad. So I started my research there. And I already had been working genealogy 2 or 3 years before that. So I really worked on his side and the Smith side for a long time. Now, I probably don't need to say this, but the most popular name in the world is Smith, okay? And the next one is not Jones, it's Patel's. The next one is Johnson's, and then Jones. Now that could change over the next year when another million people born around the world, okay? But then you get into the Smiths, you realize they go everywhere, right? It's enjoyable, but it's a big, big deal. The first recorded Smith in recorded history was in a little village of Exeter, England. This guy, recorded Smith, he was the mayor of that little village, okay? This was back about 1200 or so. So then people had one name, okay? Like Clemens, Majors. What's your name, Mr. Ponder? So anyway, you say Smith and be 40 of them stand up. Well, that got the point, they multiplied like the Bible teaches us to do, okay? Then there'd be 400 Smiths stand up and said they have to do something. The first derivative of that was blacksmith. The next one was silversmith, goldsmith, and tinsmith. Then they started migrating to Scotland and Ireland, then to the U.S. Well, then my mother's mom from Arkansas, she was a Smith, S-M-Y-T-H. That's another derivative of further separating, the people. So it just goes everywhere. But that's how I got interested in this. And then what led to the cemetery is trying to find out where the grave sites were. There we go. It just went from there. So then I was working alone, okay, and the Smiths ancestors on my immediate side are buried at the Mount Pleasant Cemetery. Up, if you go up Cloverdale Road all the way to Cypress Inn, you go right. That's County Road 227, Pumping Station Road, just known as. And the Mount Pleasant Cemetery up there, about a mile and a half on the left. Oh, and the other, they've joined us. The room is overflowing almost, which is good. Okay. But cemeteries, to me, they're very important. All of them are. And the way I got started and the others that we kind of worked together, we focused on the old forgotten ones. Some that we were looking for, we had to make multiple trips out and to find them or go knock on doors literally. And you're a young person, but we'd say, we need to talk to some old people in the area that had some information, okay? And unfortunately, not many of them left, no matter where you go, Lauderdale County and Wayne County. So somebody would tell us, well, there's some graves over there somewhere. Well, we would go back and we would go find them. And luckily in this area, Jimmy Woods and Steve Woods were very instrumental in helping us find those, okay? So, and I think David would agree, some of these old cemeteries and gravesites, not just big ones, we'd have to cut our way into them really to find them. The Koger was a typical example. You know where Mr. Cold Iron was? Over there, okay? It's Koger Plantation, okay? You've been there. So, anyway, but all of them are important. The big ones, small ones, and the single graves. However, I don't focus on the big one because most people know where they are. They know how to get there. Typical example is Richardson Cemetery down here. You know how it was created, but people know where that one is. Haven't surveyed that one. Probably will someday when I get to the point we don't have much to do. Okay, but that's how we got to those. But again, we have people that ask us about an ancestor, you know, a surname. In most cases, nobody else around the area knows these people. For example, I don't remember, Dave, if you went with me or not on the first time. In Lauderdale County, on western part of the county, from County Road 15 west and south, there are two Noel cemeteries, Noel. We went with Mrs. Walker that day. She told us about one in her house. So I found the Noel number 2. It's not too far from the solar farm. You know where that is, okay? So one day I got this phone call from the Smith guy we met. What was it? Was it Robert? Yeah, really, really nice. He called me and said, do you know where the Noel Cemetery is? I said, I do. He was surprised. I said, I know where it is. Have you been there? I said, yes, I have. So he said he had a friend that would like to go visit that cemetery. And we talked. And I said, okay. And he said, I'll get back to you in a couple of days and we'll meet somewhere. So he did. So I met him on the Gulfport Road out there, where we used to do the drag racing. Been a few years ago, okay? And there was a lady, she was probably maybe 80. And there was 3 of them, I believe. So we drove down to the cemetery and out in the field. And the lady said, is it down here? I said, yes, ma'am, it is. So we got out, and I said, we're going to have to walk a ways. It was in the pine thicket and a grove of trees and briars, big briars, man-eating briars. So, okay. And she says, I want to find the grave of my dad. That's why she wanted to come back. So she told me his name. I said, I know where his grave is. So we got through the briars and the trees, and I said, that's your dad right here. She got really quiet. She says, I was here at my dad's funeral when they buried him. She's lived elsewhere. She said, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where the cemetery was. I didn't have any idea how to get there. She said, I wanted to find my dad's grave. I said, that's him. He had a really nice stone. And I said, did you know that he was a soldier? She said, no, I didn't know that. And he was. And then when he got out of the service, he went to work for somebody in the area, western part of the county, on a farm or something. But he was involved in a farming accident and died. Died as a young guy, probably late 40s, I think. And she was just overwhelmed there, you know. And she said, I wanted to find my dad's grave. And said that was so rewarding to me, and you know, just overwhelming. But we have people who call us and, you know, where this cemetery is, or could you research this and tell me where my people are? So we do that sort of thing, okay? And we just think it's important. Now, here's a question for the group. It's not a trick question. How many of you know the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard? You may know. David may know. You ever thought about it? People use the terms interchangeably. Okay, and I'm going to tell you. This is free. Cemetery is grave sites or burial ground that's not affiliated with a church or a commercial organization. If it's affiliated with the church or maintained or within church property, it's a graveyard. Now that goes way, way back, probably 150 years ago, that term. Yeah, that's what it is. Also, now if you look into Greek, it says a place to bury dead bodies, which is, we know that, okay? And also it means sleeping chamber or burial place, okay, for those. Cemeteries are thought to have first come about in the 7th century when burials were controlled by the church in Europe. And I learned that not long ago, but they controlled the burials in all the burial places. The church did. Didn't know that, okay? But the cemetery refers to a burial ground not associated with the church, okay? You know, there's 4 or 5 different types of cemeteries you may or may not be interested in. Public cemeteries, we kind of know what those are. Okay? All of those public cemeteries are Lauderdale County and Colbert County and around the U.S., wherever you go. There's private cemeteries, okay, owned by individuals or businesses that are not open to the general public for burial. I can think of 2 right now, private. They're on private property. One is a new one near St. Florian. There's 2 burials there on that ground on the farm. One of them is a man and his dog. He wanted his dog buried beside him. That's on the family property, and you can bury on your own private property in the county. Okay? And people are doing that now.
Do you have to get permission from someone?
No. If you own the property, you can do it. That's right.
I got a quick question.
Okay.
Let's say there's a small cemetery that is not common knowledge.
Okay.
There's 5 graves in there from 100 years.
Sure.
Can anybody just go visit that, even though it's on private property? You know,
We're going to talk about that. Cemetery access. Okay. We're going to talk about it. Now, that's a good question. And it comes out frequently. Okay. And there's one on County Road 8, not too far from here. You go down to County Road 8 to Dollar General, you turn left. There's a cemetery over there. We're going to talk about those. We're going to have a couple of pictures about that one. And then there's those that are maintained and controlled by the government. Okay, military or government controlled cemeteries. Okay, natural cemeteries. You ever heard that term? Okay, you know a lot about this. Some reason. Yeah. Okay. It means to no embalming, no liners, no vaults, and using biodegradable containers, caskets, shrouds, clothing, or not at all. Sometimes they just put them in there. Over in Israel, they just put them in the grave as soon as they can. And usually there's no embalming or anything over there if they can get them buried and everything in a short time. Okay. That brings us to another one category: cemetery access. We get this frequently. And I see it on Facebook sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to respond to it. Sometimes I can't resist it. Okay. I'm going to give you a handout right here. This is free, no charge. I need about 20 copies for the people in the back. Okay. Normally, I don't talk about this too much. David knows about it. Okay. And we get this question a lot, okay? Cemetery access. Who can go to cemeteries? And people will say frequently, well, you can't go there. I said, why? It's on private property. Well, what does that mean? Private property. You ever thought about it? Most people don't. You just can't go there. Well, they're mistaken. Now, private property, all property is private, except if If it's owned by the federal government, the BLM, which is primarily the western states, which I've lived all over the West too, boy from Cloverdale has, and local government, state government, city government entities. Well, that's all private. Somebody owns all of it. Okay. Now, the law states, they don't get too deep into this. This is the Alabama statutes govern access to cemeteries. And the short answer, yes, you can go. We don't like to tell people this, but the state statute says you can't keep me from going to your cemetery on your property. You can't do it. Now, I've only had to tell this to two people. One's in Wayne County and one in Lauderdale County. Most people welcome us to go to cemeteries. We even have people go help us find and go help us work occasionally, okay? But they really can't keep you out. Now, the statutes are written, they're slanted toward the property owners, as they should be, okay? Now, here's a good example. Earlier this year, I was looking for there's 4 brown cemeteries in Lauderdale County, and I was looking for the 4th one. 3 are up near Lexington and Rogersville. Well, I knew it was near Elgin and south toward the river. I finally found the trail that went down to a man's house where the cemetery was. I go knock on his door, introduce myself, tell him what I want to do. I want to visit the Brown Cemetery. He was a nice fellow, and I was nice because I was getting a little frustrated trying to find it, but I knew it was back there. So he said, "Yeah, back here." And I said, "You've been there recently?" "Well, it's back there." I said, "Well, I want to go back there and check it." "Well, why do you want to go?" "I want to check the condition of it and check it for vandalism, just see what's there, who's there, see if it matches some of the old records we have and record it, document it, update our surveys. You can't go there." And so we kept talking. And I said, "Well, I want to go there." "You can't go there." "Well, why don't you want me to go there?" "We just can't." "My grandfather built this road down here." I said, "Well, that's well and good, but that has nothing to do with the cemetery." So he didn't want to cave in. So I said, "I'll be back." A couple days later, I went to the courthouse and talked to the sheriff's department, and they sent an investigator to talk to me. So we sat there and talked, and then he had never had this question come up about access. I gave him a copy of this. He sat down and he read through it. He'd look at it, and he'd look at me, and look at it. He says, "They can't keep you out, can you?" I said, "They can't. But you got to go for the right reasons. Historical or descendants, family, and this type of thing. You have to go for the right reasons, okay, and go." Now, what he can do, the property owner can say, "Come back tomorrow at 12 o'clock and we'll go there." He can say that. Okay? Now, if there's no other existing old trail or road from years back going to that cemetery, he has to let you go. Okay. I went to cemeteries where there's lock on them. Well, they can lock that, but they need to post the contact information. Okay, but most people don't. And some you can go in even if they are locked. Just where they are. But we try real hard to notify and contact the landowner before we go to cemeteries. Because in this day and time, you don't know who's in your area. You don't know why I'm there, okay? And a lot of people see, "Oh, you're still now. You got a little white car. I've seen that going up down the highway." But we're professional about it. We try to notify the right people. And sometimes the landowner is absentee owner, out of state, and nobody knows who they are. You got the land records, you can't tell who owns it, who's the current owner.
Sometimes they don't want you to let your cows out.
That's right. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever done that. We would do it on purpose anyway.
I would want them to know that I was doing that so fast because I would not want to get shot at.
Well, yeah, one guy told me, one lady said, "Now this guy lives way over here. You see his house?" He said, "He's kind of different. He might shoot you." I said, "Well, it's not a good day to be shot." So went back around, all the way around, and tried to talk to the guy, and never could. But I went back the second time, tried to talk to the same person. He wasn't home. But then I realized there was another access road, old road, adjacent to his property, outside the fence, so you could drive right up to it. But most people really, they're okay with it, and they welcome you to go there. Okay. I'm still working on one near Elgin, near Center Star, and the lady lives in Colorado. I found out who she is, and I left a message, but she hasn't got back to me. But we try to do that. Now, there's some key words in this statute, really, and that's all you need to know. That's allow ingress and egress. It doesn't say provide, it says allow. Okay, that's what the law says. He has to allow. He or she has, the property owner has to allow you to go in. Okay. But we've had very few people that say, hey, no, we don't want you there. Okay. And then we tell them, well, for the last almost a year, we haven't done a lot of cleaning. Okay. So we used to go when there's Dave and I, we had 5 or 6 guys with us, the Woods brothers, some other people. We did a lot of cleaning. I mean, it was hard, difficult cleaning. But now we're old, and some of our guys had to have parts replaced and stuff, so the cleaning is done. But we're still going doing surveys, updating surveys. Even though some of the surveys, they were current, but nobody's been back in 15 years. There's been a lot of deaths and burials in the county for the last 15 years. Okay. But it's, to me, it's so interesting, and personally, it's necessary to do this. I really feel it's necessary to do this, and because it helps people, and it's just the right thing to do. Okay, that's why we do it. Questions from anybody in the audience? Okay, there's one in the back.
Do you have any younger people that have stepped up and volunteered in the younger generation that said, you know, I still think this is important, and would you teach me how to do this, or do they seem interested?
A good question, and it's asked a lot, and the answer is no. They are not interested. They're not. Now, I'll have to say, even my children, they're not interested. They like what I do and what Dave and what we've all done. All the guys have been helping, working together. But it's just something they don't see an interest in, and see, they don't think it's important. Okay. And when I remind them, you're going to be there soon. We're going to count you. Okay. We may be there tomorrow. We don't know that. But they're not interested.